So it's now after 2015. I mean, it is 2015, and we have not talked to Dean Webb since last year. And so we were happy to have you come in today and to kind of share our new year with us and share what's happening at Faith Farm, Dean.
I'm glad to be here. It's going to be an exciting year. I always look forward to a new year with anticipation. I really do, because there's just an element of the unknown, of excitement on good things that can happen in a year.
Well, the thing is, though, you live a life of good things happening all the time anyway. You make good things happen, even though to someone else it would be very disappointing. You always turn lemons into lemonade. That's your nature.
Well, I'm working with a group of people that are desperate, that drug and alcohol addiction, and they come to us, and they don't come to us till usually we're their last hope. They've usually been to other recovery, 30-day programs, 12-step, or whatever. They've been through most of them have been through other situations before they get to us. So they're kind of motivated in that we're their last hope in their minds, they feel. So when they stick it out to graduation and really affect you, both a spiritual and physical life change and emotional life change, it's really powerful.
Do you see people, though, who are not going to be able to recover? And if you do, what would be the reason for them not to recover when they...
Their personal motivation. Not everyone who's addicted is in that gene pool of addiction, but an awful lot of them are. But all of them that change are motivated to change. I over the holidays, I guess people give out my cell phone number, and I talk to people in Joliet, Illinois. I talk to people all over, who have a son that's got a bad alcohol problem, or a nephew with an addiction. I talked to a lady who's just the most brilliant interior decorator I know in Atlanta. She has written 18 books. She's just incredible. But her granddaughter she sent me a sequence of pictures of her 6 months ago, 3 months ago, and then last week. And honestly, the last week one, if they weren't in sequence, so I could see the resemblance, I wouldn't recognize her, because she'd gotten addicted to methamphetamines, and I mean, she was starting to lose. I mean, it was just horrible how she looked. And she's concerned. And of course, I told her, I gave her all the information in the world. I texted and emailed her mother, her daughter, who is the girl's mother. And, but the granddaughter, until and by the way, she was a beautiful 22-year-old woman, just gorgeous. And, or 6 months ago she was. Anyway, but until she determines that she wants to change, until she's fed up with that lifestyle, until she's sick of it and something happens to trigger it, and she applies, it's not going to happen for her. And our prayer is that somebody gets to her, or anybody that in need, before, somewhere around where the bottom hits, before it hits, they go past that point, because a lot of times they get to a point where they contemplate suicide or something like that. And that is just, when it goes that far, it's really tragic. And so if somebody doesn't recover, it's because they're not motivated. And Faith Farm is a volunteer program. So we have people come in and they walk out all the time. I mean, we've had them walk out, and 2 days later we find out they're dead behind a dumpster. We've gotten those calls. And so it's a volunteer program, but you got to have somebody motivated. To answer your question specifically, the only thing that wouldn't cause them to do it is a lack of motivation.
And I was listening, as you said, about this woman who is the grandmother. Mm-hmm. And sounds like she's very prosperous. And so it's not a matter of money. It's really, in fact, sometimes money is a problem. But, you see homeless people, and they, of course, are doing this too. And we've talked about this before. A lot of this, they're hereditary genes, and someone's an alcoholic. In the past, you always hear, well, it was my grandfather, my mother, my somebody. But that can be erased, can it?
Yes. When I say that, I'm just saying they have a predisposition to do that. They can't always take one or two drinks and stop like the average person at, let's say, at 5 o'clock happy hour or something. They can have a drink or two and then stop. people that have a predisposition to this, they have a real difficult once they get that their blood sugar alcohol gets pumped up. They have a predisposition to want more and more and more. And so the only way you can be sure of avoiding that is abstinence. It's kind of like if you don't do certain things, you're not going to get pregnant if you abstain. I mean, there are consequences to everything we do. And a lot of people don't know that they have a predisposition. Some people know that their father, let's say, was just a drunkard, and they realize that they're going to have a problem with it. And some of them, tiptoe into that and get hooked. Some of them tiptoe and back out and say, no, that's not for me. I know that my father's like that. So I probably have a predisposition to that. But it all comes down, all of life is choices. We can make good choices and have bad things happen to us. We can make bad choices and have good things, but it's all choices. But in terms of beating drug and alcohol addiction, it's your motivation.
I'm glad you mentioned the choices, and that is really true. I just read something about someone wrote a wonderful article on choices. And no matter what happens to us, we do have choices. And of course, we're so glad, and I've said this over and over. I talk about Faith Farm all the time to so many people, and it is amazing how many people just think that Faith Farm is a thrift shop. And I always say, do you know how what it's all about and how they're supported? No. And I start to tell them, as a matter of fact, we had someone here, not only our operations manager, but another person who doesn't have a lot of money, and he just got an apartment. And I told him about Faith Farm, and he said, oh, yeah, well, don't they just have some old junky stuff? I said, no. Why don't you just go there and look? So nothing would do. He went there. I don't know if he bought it yet. He saw an Ashley bed that he really wanted, and he realized that this is a major industry. And when he said, well, maybe I could go there, I said, why would you do that when that's just a business and this is a charity? It's helping people. And that's how I see this.
Yeah.
Why would you do that when you know that every dollar spent here is helping people?
Yeah, I talked to a businessman, had lunch with him Tuesday up at Capital City Grill up in the PGA Boulevard. He says, I always make sure when my business needs a desk, he says, you go to Faith Farm and buy the new desk there at the Ashley desk. And he said, because that's one way I can help support through my business is making sure we buy our products through you.
Yeah, and something that, of course, we're so happy, and I know I always embarrass you when I do this, but they are so lucky to have you, with your credentials and who you are and what you do, and I see how you are with people. So maybe that's one of the problems with other places, that they don't have that kind of, inspiration, that person that really loves what they do and has not only that, but some of them love it, but they don't have the capability, they don't have the management skills, they don't have who you are. And so you're it. You're the get-go of this whole place. And of course, I know that it's been going on for a long time.
Well, it's been around 63 years, so it's not just me. I tell you, the staff, over half of our staff have been addicted, and they've come through the program, and they've changed their lives, and they're staying there as an employee to pour their life change back into other people the way their lives were changed. So it's everything. I talked to a guy that moved from unbelievable. Matter of fact, he's going to give his story at our homecoming, February 22nd.
Should I mark that down?
Yeah.
February 27th.
February 22nd.
That's the big one,
27.
Right? 27th.
Sunday at 10 o'clock under the big tent. He was in California, and he came through the program years ago while our founder, Pappy, was still alive. And he kind of took him under his wing. This guy came out of prison. He managed like singing groups and bands and stuff. He was in the industry. And that's how his addiction, and then it escalated to prison. But anyway, he was out in California, and he worked with when certain people would get arrested, he'd see that in the paper, and he'd go to prison, and he would talk to them about God and said, God, you can change your life. And so he was kind of ministering to people like that. He's written 5 books. He's brilliant. But anyway, he said he downloaded my book, U-Turn, from Kindle at Amazon. And he says, and I've been reading it, and he says, I honestly forgot where I came from. When I read those stories, he said, I would tear up because I'd say, God, I forgot the deep, deep life changes that I saw in my life and others when I was at Faith Farm years ago. So he has moved to Florida 3 months ago. He's in Pompano Beach, and he is consulting with other recovery processes to try and put introduce a God wing of that or an option into there. He says, because when I deal with these people in these recovery places, he said all they care about is your money and your insurance. Are you insured? He says, I don't see the heart that I saw at Faith Farm for the people. He said, and to me, that's the real big difference. He said, so I don't know how successful I'll be. He said, people are a little bit resistant to what I want to introduce, but they have hired me as a consultant to give them information on how it would help to have the God element introduced in these people's lives in their recovery program. And at least give them the option of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. He's going to be one of our speakers at homecoming. He agreed to do that. I don't know how he's going to condense something into 5-minute testimony.
Right. That's
anyway.
Always the problem because everyone has so much to say. But I hope that everyone who gets BoomerTimes makes sure that you always read the Faith Farm column because it's written beautifully by Judy Walters, and it's real. Things in there are real. It's what's happening there. And you'll be able to understand why we're so dedicated to helping Faith Farm. If you go to their website, faithfarm.org, you will see everything that we talk about. You'll see what's available to purchase. You'll see how you can donate. Don't forget to donate. And you will see and you'll see the U-Turn book, which I have right in front of me, U-Turn to God, Wrong Ways Made Right. It's a great title. I mean, I know we talked about that before, but it's a wonderful book. And of course, I know that Dean is very busy, but he's thinking of something else, continuing it in a different way, and that's going to be fun, right? Because you said about the families. And the more I think about that, it is the families. It's always the family. So you just talked to me about your grandmother of that girl.
Yeah.
The girl's out of it right now, but the grandmother's suffering as much as she is.
Oh, and her daughter, the mother of the girl, is just beside herself. What's going to be fun is this Sunday, our graduation, the guy that gave me that idea, his daughter is graduating. And he's coming down from Cincinnati. The godparents are coming from Orlando. They're all going to be there Sunday, and that's going to be an exciting graduation. Yeah.
Well, I know, and everything that you do, you keep putting new ideas there. But something you told me when you came into the studio, which I think is really quite beautiful, about the ladies and what they said about coming over the bridge and what that was for them.
Anita, that happened right. I was standing up to leave my desk to drive down here for the show, and Judy Walters handed me. She said, "You got to read these 5 letters." I said, "Well, put them on my desk." She said, "No, you got to read them right now. You won't believe this." So I quickly scanned these 5 letters, and what had happened is one of our graduates handles orientation. We have 6 weeks of orientation when people first come in, and usually. If they're an atheist, they'll leave by then because they'll realize we really are a faith-based ministry, and if they can't handle that, so orientation skims out a lot of people. And anyway, so this gal said, "You know what I wanted?" She's from England, and she says, "You know what I would like to do?" She said, "I would respectfully like for you to give a book, or at least loan to each one of the 5 girls in orientation." And she said. I think it would be encouraging. I said, well, sure. And so I'd donated money to buy extra books so if somebody needed to give them away. And I'll do the same thing for you, by the way. I'll get you a case of books you can carry in your car. And when you run across something, you can run out and say, here's what's... We even gave some books to a Christian bookstore and says, you know what? I don't even care if you sell them. If you sell them, I do want you to sell them, even if it's for $5. Just take them, and they list for $14.95. If somebody wants to buy them, because I want people to know behind the curtain what's going on at Faith Farm.
Well, but you don't know is we have the Boomer Expos coming up next week, and we feature the books from 6 months that we review. And of course, I think it's been later than that, but U-Turn will be there. You just should know that. I always keep it there.
I will give you.
I always keep it there.
Do you have books to sell, or
I don't sell them there, but we do. We could give some away if you wanted. I mean, people would. You never know who might take it that might need it. You can't. You always said to me, you can't tell what's going on for that person by looking at them, right?
Right. Well, you don't know. And here's the thing. I'm always trying, just like I've try to get you to graduations, and you've been to a couple.
Oh, my gosh.
Because that's what, to me, that really tells you what what's really going on. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's the show and tell.
Oh, yes.
That's you can
Yeah.
see people's heart change
come so
when they
inspired.
give
I
their
come home so
graduation
inspired.
speeches. But a lot of people, one of the reasons I wanted to write the book is take those 50, select 50 of those graduation speeches, put them in a book, so I could, if I handed somebody the book, then I'm handing, they're attending, it's like attending graduation. I didn't modify those.
Right.
I just printed them the way they wrote them. So, and gave the speech. So I can take graduation to them. So that's what I try to do. If you can't come,
love
then I'm
that.
going to
Take
give you the book and take it
graduation
to
to
them.
them.
But anyway, what I was going to tell you is walking out the door, I looked at these things. So anyway, Ursula had given these books to these 5 girls to read. And so while they were in the program, and she said, when they finished at a certain time, I don't know if it's because they're graduating this Sunday or where they are in the program. I didn't get that. She said, I want you to just write a brief page on what the book meant to you, if anything. Well, this was the 5 pages that Judy handed me. And I swear there was one girl wrote, she said, as I read the book, the stories in the book, she said, I started feeling guilty because some of these people were worse off than me. And I thought, oh God, am I taking up a much needed bed for somebody who needs this more than me? She says, and then as I read through and got the life change, she said, there's something happened to my spirit. I said, you know what? I'm a person too. I'm worthy to have my life changed. I'm going to stick it out here and graduate. Another girl says, I can't tell you how many times I started to walk across that bridge. I just got so discouraged and thought, this is never going to happen for me. And she said, that night, they always encouraged them to read at least one graduation speech a night out of the book, one chapter a night. They're only 2 or 3 pages. So she said, and I'd read a 1 or 2 of the speeches, and I'd go, I can stick this out. She said it was such an encouragement to me. So anyway, all 5 of those letters were about how encouraging the book was to realize I'm not alone. God, when I read these stories, these people have been through more than I have, some of them, and they made it, and they graduated. If they can do it, I can do it. So it was it was very heart-touching. So at our next directors meeting, I'm going to propose that everybody that enters Class 1, I speak to Class 1 after they've been through orientation. And, for example, we have a graduation Sunday, and I will speak to the new Class 1 on Tuesday morning. The Tuesday after graduation, I do it each of the 3 farms. And I'm thinking about giving each one of them a book and just,
Well, absolutely.
And saying, when you start to get discouraged or something, just read these. Because some of these people, you think you're not the only one that's been in this mess, I mean, we've got 35,000 people come here, for God's sakes, through 63 years and have had their lives changed. So you're not alone. You're not the only one. And no matter how bad you think it is, or and I mean, you will read about horrendous felonies and stuff that people feel that they've asked God for forgiveness and they've changed their life. And you're not alone in this. I mean, there are people that have gone before you that have made it through graduation, and they've been through times as tough as you.
Well, and I think about the staff that you have. So many of them were addicts, and
Right.
There they are working there, and they're a shining example.
Yeah.
Not only did they get helped, but now they're in doing a wonderful job, and they've been able to, be a good citizen. So my question is this, though. Let's say someone's been through the program, and let's say that they wind up in a situation where there is drinking, there are drugs. Can they remove them? Can they get by that somehow? How can they?
That's their choice. It's all up to them.
So it isn't a matter of being around it anymore. I mean, that's not easy, but they could still be around it. Let's say they have a wife that drinks, and they just decide they don't drink anymore, right?
Yeah, right. See, all programs are basically abstinence programs while you're in the program. We're no different. Everybody, a 30-day program, our 9-month program, they're all abstinence. The difference is we try and get into the root core of the person to change them mentally and physically and spiritually. And part of that is building up a strength in them to say no. And if they have to silently say a prayer, God, please help me be strong, or whatever it is, we try and change them. And it goes deeper than that. We have courses on forgiveness, for example. On you've got to get your soul clean. You've got to forgive people that have harmed you. to really, really experience a spiritual renewal. You
Is that
can't
because they
hold bitterness.
drink because of that?
They
that
could have had horrible. I told you in a previous show about the guy whose older brother abused him, and he finally one day resisted, and his older brother says, "I'm going to get even with you," because his mother always comforted him, and she didn't know he was sexually abusing him. She knew he was physically abusing. And he came on one day, and there she was dead on the couch, and his brother went to prison for 28 years for that and was getting released, and he checked himself into Faith Farm because he says, "If I'm on the street, I'll kill my brother. I'll kill." And so then I talked to him one-on-one about forgiveness. I said, "I know I'm asking a big deal, and I don't know that I could do what I'm asking you to do. I don't even know that, but I'm telling you what you need to do. The highest and best use for your time here is to be able to somehow forgive your brother for what he did to your mother, killing your mother."
And this is just something that came into my mind because you were, of course, an officer in the Navy. How do you forgive the enemy? That just came to me when you were saying that. You keep talking about forgiveness. How do you forgive the enemy?
That's tough. I saw it. I think it was a 60-minute
Yeah, there
episode
was
where
something.
a guy went back to I've seen one go to North Korea and one went to North Vietnam to seek out the people, his opposing officer that imprisoned him and whatever, to forgive him. That is the toughest thing. I tell you, when I see things that happen on the street where a mother has her son killed, whether it's by a drug thing or a policeman or whatever, and she stands up there and says, "Please don't riot. I forgive him." I'm going, God,
Yeah, I know.
Almighty,
I
how
that.
could I do that?
I know.
You know,
So I don't know how
sometimes I'm human.
Yeah.
I give people the highest and best level to live at. That does not mean if I say that you need to forgive them that I can automatically. Well, I could do that. I told the kid. I said, I don't even know if I can do what I'm asking you to do. I know what needs to be done. I always know what the right thing to do. I don't always do the right thing. So I don't know if I could live at that high level I'm asking you to live in, because I don't think I've had anything that disastrous. I mean, my dad was killed in a car accident when I was 12, but he fell asleep at the wheel. You know, nobody shot him or killed him or anything, so there was nothing to forgive. So I don't know if his death had been, I don't know if I forgive them because it so altered my life. It would be a hard thing. But we still teach the best thing to do. We're not saying that we're perfect and we're sterling and we can do it.
But you feel a lot of the people who come there, if they can forgive the problems that they brought with them, then that's a first step.
That's a first step. Another course we have is called houses.
Houses?
It's called houses. And
Yeah.
you simply stand up, and you have to be in class for weeks and weeks to trust the people you're doing this in front of. and you draw just a stick house, and you draw stick figures on who was in the house. And then the next place you lived, you draw another house, and you put the stick figures. And what happens is when you go through that, for example, Troy, our director, who all of his brothers have been killed in drug deals. He's the only guy that's alive from Riviera Beach in his home. When he was doing houses, he told me 13 years ago, he said, all of a sudden I started weeping when I got the fourth house. And I said, why were you weeping? He says, because I realized none of those stick figures was a man. I never had a father in my home. I never had a father. I was one of 7 children by 7 different men with my mom. There was never a father in my home. He said, and all I realized all of a sudden, he says, the reason I say you're a father figure to me is because I never had a father.
He was yearning for a father.
He was yearning for a father. And that was one of the deep-seated things that didn't come out till he just did that simple exercise.
And something like that could cause to become an alcoholic. Is it because you want to forget when you have alcohol?
Most drug and alcohol is, forget your pain. It's try to medicate your pain. Just make it go away. I can't stand to think about it. Please don't make me think about it. I can't stand it. I can't live with this. And it's all medication of pain and memories and situations. And that's why we try and cocoon people in a loving atmosphere for 9 months while we instruct them on how to clean their life up.
You know, it's interesting that we do radio, and I do a lot of radio, and Dean does a lot of interviews with people. And if we thought that every time we shared an interview, wherever it was, that it made a difference with one person, that whether we got you to contribute some money just to help to keep those people there in their beds because it's all free for them for 9 months, or if we thought that you now go to Faith Farm, because they're going to help you and you need them. Or if it's just to go to buy or to contribute, donate some of your things, we would feel so much better, because that's why we do this. Has nothing to do with an ego. This has to do, at least I know for me and for Dean, it's because we want to share something that we feel is so important. And we have such love for the human race, and we just want to make, we both appreciate our lives, and we want to share it. I know I'm speaking for both of us, but I know that's true.
Yeah, I was very blessed. I'm the son of a preacher, so I grew up in a minister's home. And
but he died when you were 12.
When I was 12. But I got to see a lot of life change. Of course, I never saw life change like I've seen at Faith Farm. And maybe it's because they come in so low and end up so high. Maybe the elevation is so great. I don't know. Compared to people that just attend church and then accept God and become good people and all that stuff. It's just such a dramatic life change in their, we always take an entry level photo and then let them see their photo, what they look like when they came in. Yeah. And I'm telling you, sometimes we don't recognize them, I've had people show me their intake photo, and I literally would not recognize them.
Well, I just want to make sure everyone has the faithfarm.org website, and they can go over there to any of the 3 Faith Farms, one in Fort Lauderdale, one in Okeechobee, and the big one there in Boynton Beach. We just hope that you'll do this. This will make a difference in your life. It'll make a difference in our life. This is a very special organization. Don't go to any of the other thrift shops. Please, just go to them. I mean
Not that we're prejudiced or anything.
Well, I'm prejudiced. Sorry. I just have to say that. Anyway, thanks so much, Dean, for being here with us. And it's another great 2015 with you.
Amen. Thank you.